The era of the old Africa is over. Today, the African people are more awake than ever and more than ever determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The African people are tired, exhausted by the categorizations with which everyone wants to box us in. Placing us under the influence of this or that power is an insult. It is contempt and racism towards a continent of more than 1,300,000,000 people. The time has come. This is the end of an unbalanced and unjust era where we had no say in the matter. It is time to take our rights into account and to let us take our proper place. But also, and above all, it is time to stop lecturing us and to stop treating us with condescension like children. Rest assured that we're old enough to know what is good for us. We are mature enough to define our priorities, to design our own models which are in line with our identity.
The Guinea president made a speech that crushes the West and the United Nations members. Let us talk about it. After the death of African leaders such as Muammar Gaddafi, Robert Mugabe, Mobutu Sese Seko, a lot of African leaders, whenever they stand in that altar in the United Nations, they don't really have that courage to speak the truth, nothing but the truth, to address this West with their mafias. Do you know why? Because a lot of these African leaders, they were just puppets. They were used by the West. They were used by the US and France. These are the countries that put them in power so that they will be working for their benefit. So whenever they are being given a chance for them to stand and denounce, speak nothing but the truth, they never do so. Instead, they were just crying babies and not trying to defend the African people. But that time is over, by the way. Now we're talking about a new generation of African youth which is trying to do things in a different way. These African youth, they are in almost all the categories, whether it is among the leadership as a president, whether it is among the organizations that get to revolt African youth. Now, as you all know that the UN, which is the United Nations, they've been having their General Assembly as they usually do time to time, and this time they have the one of 78 General Assembly, which they were discussing about a lot of things according to their team. Here comes this young man. Before we get to listen to what this young man had said, I just want to brief you in a little bit about him. Who's he and where is he from? Obviously, he's a true Pan-African from Guinea. For those who don't know Guinea, here is Guinea map. Have a look on it. For those who don't know it, get familiar with it, because I know a lot of our brothers who are all over around the world, some in the America or Europe, some of them, they don't even know which side is Guinea located in Africa. All they know is that Guinea, it is an African country, but they don't have any idea of which side or which corner of Africa does Guinea located. So Guinea is located in the west of Africa. They have the population of 12.6 million of people. They do speak French, and their currency is the one of France, of course, franc CFA. I don't know for how long will Africans have to continue using the currency of their colonists, such as the franc CFA made by France. By the way, so that is what I can say about Guinea. So after this military coup, this man, Mamady, he's the one who took power in that country, and since then he's been criticized by the West, who feel that their interest was no longer protected by this man, by the way. So therefore, they've been trying by all means to make sure that they destroy him. But this young man have a vision for Africa and for his country. You may wonder, how old is this man? Well, this man was born in 1980. Obviously, he's still a young man, but full of wisdom and full of courage to fight for Africans. So he had given a very powerful speech in the United Nations. He gave a speech of about 90 minutes, but we don't have all the time to be sitting here and talk over the same speech. So what we did, we actually tried to summarize some capital points which I would like to invite you to watch so that we can try to analyze it together with you at home. Let us listen to him.
This is not an exhaustive list, but we believe that the transitions underway in Africa are due to several factors, including broken promises, the lethargy of the people, and leaders tampering with constitutions with the sole concern of remaining in power to the detriment of collective well-being. Today, the African people are more awake than ever and more than ever determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The unequal distribution of wealth creates endless inequalities, famine, and abject poverty, which make the daily lives of our populations increasingly difficult. These inequalities are part of the causes for the events that endanger our peaceful coexistence above all. When the wealth of a country is in the hands of an elite, while newborns die in hospitals due to a lack of incubators, it is not surprising that in such conditions we are seeing transitions in order to respond to the profound aspirations of the people.
You heard what the men said. The men try to talk about the revolutions which is ongoing in Africa. The revolution that each and every African around the world they are talking about. He had to remind the West that what you guys were seeing in Africa, it is not something that Africans wanted to do, but now they are left without no choice than just to do it once for all. Do you know why? Because Africans, they've been so patient. Africans, they've been tolerating nonsense from the West. Africans, they've been so humble and being good listeners. Instead of them trying to revolt themselves and try to put their power together so that they can get to develop this beautiful continent, they were kind of like sleeping, listening to all the lies, all the nonsense that the West was imposing on them. So he had to say that these revolutions that comes in, it comes with a good reasons. One, he mentioned about politicians. And here if we're talking about politicians, for those who always watch us time to time, you'll understand that we are referring to the puppet government, puppet presidents, puppet leaders, African leaders who have to come and take the power. Instead of them serving their own people, they are serving the West, they are serving US, they are serving France and British. So he had to remind everyone that no, look, these revolutions, it is because of the bad government in Africa. Leaders who comes, they don't want to do their job. Instead, they want to remain at the service of individuals. They want to remain at the service of the open IMAS system. Those are the reasons that motivate Africans to now start taking care of themselves, to now start revoluting and trying to seek their true reparations. Did he lie about that? Nope. We all know how our leaders did impose us, because some people, they might even come and say that no, look, he's saying like that because it's just a military. Nope. If you listen at the beginning of his speech, because as I said, I'm just trying to summarize some key points. The man had said that I'm gonna speak as a military and not as a politician, because I know a lot of politicians, they don't want to speak the truth. Even they can see something that these things, the color of these things is white, them they'll tell that it's red or black, because they don't want to tell the truth. So he wants to speak as a true Pan-Africans who want to see Africa having its own true liberation. And that is how he get to tell them some of the reasons that is motivating or revolting Africans to start having this moment of revolutions. And he mentioned all those points as we get to say. But was that all? No. The men this time have to talk about what is happening in Africa. He says that Africa has been suffering from what the West has imposed on them, which is Africans. Let us have a listen.
Africa, ladies and gentlemen, is suffering from a governance model that has been imposed on it. A model that is certainly good and effective for the West, which developed it over the course of its history, but which is difficult to incorporate and adapt to our realities, our customs, and our environment. Alas, I have to say that the graft did not take. I know that when I say this, many will immediately say to themselves, oh, another warmonger who wants to wring the neck of democracy, or another soldier who wants to impose his dictatorship. However, I want to say very clearly, without hypocrisy, without pretense, eye to eye, we're all aware that this democratic model that you have so insidiously, skillfully imposed on us after the La Baule summit in France, something you've been imposing almost religiously, this model does not work. Various economic and social indices demonstrate this plain and clear. This is not a value judgment on democracy itself. Believe me, this is just taking stock of the situation. It's a balance sheet. Over several decades of chaotic experimentation with this model in our environment, we can make this observation. This was a period full of nothing but political games. And this, of course, has been to the detriment of what is essential, namely the economy and the local processing of our natural resources. Allow me to take this truth exercise a little further. Through my short but very intense experience of managing a state, Guinea, I have come to better understand the extent to which this model has, above all, contributed to maintaining a system of exploitation and plunder of our resources by others, and a rampant corruption of our elites. National leaders who have often been granted democratic labels based on their acquiescence or their capacity for selling off the resources and the property of their people, or perhaps their ease in giving in to the suitor recommendations and injunctions of the great powers. I must confess in this regard that everything that I am facing goes beyond all imagination. These are the same people who profess democracy, transparency, who denounce poor governance and corruption, who dictate the rules. It is they who, behind the scenes, very discreetly and underhandedly, are increasing pressure to make us cede our national wealth through unconscionable leonine contracts. I understand certain leaders and some of my predecessors who, because they possess certain weaknesses, because they were under pressure, or because they had skeletons in their closets, or particularly because they had a political agenda, gave in to what was being asked of them. I understand them, even if I do not approve.
All will disagree with this man when he said that The democracy, the so-called democracy that we are having in Africa, it has been imposed on us by the West. And you have to remember, when we're referring to the West, we see the US and France, British, all these open IMAS countries that get to impose their leadership in Africa. They are coming in Africa to impose their so-called democracy on what suits them and what is benefiting them better. What kind of a democracy is that? Only what you said, it is what everyone they have to say yes. And what other person said, you don't consider it. How many of things that Africans they have tried to suggest as a solution to different matters which never been considered by the West. Instead, they're looking at you like that small monkeys and they don't consider you. Proof to that, look at recently, President Ramaphosa lead a big delegation going to Russia and Ukraine just to go there and try to show them a way out as a solution on this conflict that's been going there in Ukraine. Who did listen to him? Especially when it comes to NATO, who have to pull the ears of Zelensky, asking him to not listen or do otherwise of what they had planned already because they are willing to get rid of Vladimir Putin. So in other words, they kind of like telling him that you don't have to listen to Africans, they don't have nothing to tell you. You have to do what we're telling you. Is that democracy? Is that how you have to deal with things in the democracy? Nope. So this is what they've been doing in Africa. They come in Africa, they try to preach you, condemning what you are doing and telling you that no, what they are doing is what they call democracy. Forgetting about African cultures, forgetting about African point of view, they just have to come and impose it to you. Do you guys still remember when the US vice president went and visited Zambia? When people of Zambia, they were busy expecting her to come up with something like which can benefit Zambia and the entire Africa continent. Instead, she went there just for her to go and promote the gay and lesbian marriage, imposing it to the people of Zambia. Like enough, the Zambian end up reminding her that, look, we are Africans and we know what we are doing. So if you said this is the democracy that you want to come and impose on us, well, you are wrong. Because we have our good manners and we have our way that we should do with this kind of things. So you don't come and preach us that we should go and do something just because you had approved it in your country and you want us to come and do that. To make story short, guys, these people, they've been imposing their so-called democracy in Africa. And that is how they end up making a lot of African leaders becoming puppets. Because if you don't do what they're asking you to do, if you don't apply what they've been imposing you to do or to say, then you become the enemy number one. Look at, for an example, the president of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, since he stood against this Western and tell them that nope, Uganda is my land, Africa is my soul. Therefore, I'm not going to allow you to come here and tell me how to live in my country. I'm not going to allow you to tell me which law should I sign and which one should I not sign. Do you see how they get to treat him? They've been threatening the Ugandan economy. They send their MasterCard and they Google. They try to impose their sanctions on Ugandan people. But at least the Ugandan, they remain firm with their solution or whatsoever they decided to do. We don't have any problem with all those people that you get to know. Here we're just trying to speak the fact that these people, the West, they've been always trying to impose their democracy in Africa. A democracy that you have to do what it makes them feel comfortable, what they want you to do. If you don't do it, they consider you as their enemy number one. They are not going to cooperate with you. They'll come and start imposing sanctions on you. And this is what this man is trying to say. He even went far saying that a lot of African leaders, they forgot to play their duty. They forgot their own people, all because they were afraid of losing power to these West countries. And they feel like, no, they have just to comply with what they are being told. So that is how a lot of these things called so democracy, it has been there, and they keep holding Africa. As I said, they get to impose you this democracy so that they get an easy way to loot your country. They get the easy way to have access to your minerals, and that's how they manage to hold Africa for all these years.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wear my uniform in service to my people, and I would be grateful if you would respect that oath. An oath to keep ourselves a respectable distance from divisions of all kinds that many attempt to fuel in our countries. The Sahel is undergoing one of the most serious crises in its very long history. But it has the resources that are required to face it. Its legendary sense of diplomacy must be unleashed so that we can speak to each other without interference. It is for this reason that ECOWAS, whose vocation was economic, let's stop getting involved in politics and favor dialogue. The African people are tired, exhausted by the categorizations with which everyone wants to box us in. Africa's population is young. It did not experience the Cold War. It did not experience the ideological wars that have shaped the world over the last 70 years. That is why we, Africans, are insulted by the boxes, the categories, which sometimes place us under the influence of the Americans, sometimes under that of the British, sometimes the French, or the Chinese, or the Russians, and even the Turks. We are neither pro nor anti-American. We are neither pro nor anti-Chinese, nor pro or anti-French, nor pro or anti-Russian, nor pro or anti-Turkish. We are simply pro-African, that is all. Placing us under the influence of this or that power is an insult. It is contempt and racism towards a continent of more than 1,300,000,000 people. It is important that in this prestigious and influential assembly we understand clearly and definitively that the era of the old Africa is over.
The West, they are in the loss of their control over African countries, over African head of the state, who are now awakened, and they are working together with the African youth in order for them to liberate themselves from the open eye master system. Therefore, they have become so desperate to the point of starting working with some of the world organizations, or should I say African organizations such as African Union, ACOA, and many more organizations that we get to see around the world, in order for them to come and deny all these leaders in these countries where the military coup is taking place. Therefore, this man Mamady said, we are tired of the West. We are tired of their manipulation that they get to use other Africans in order for them to revolt among themselves as Africans. Africa don't need that. Africans, we don't need to fight among ourselves if we really want to liberate this beautiful continent. So the men have to go far, saying that they are saying that no, we are now turning our backs against the West, and now we are facing the Middle East, such as China and Russia. He said, nope, we are not pro-Russia. We are not pro-China. We are not pro-US or any country in the world. We are pro-Africans. Because Africa is what made us to be who we are today. That kind of speech. That was the speech that really destroyed the West. It crushes them into pieces. They were all shaking. You could see after he finished his speech, it was only black people who were in that wall had applauded. Because they know that this is the kind of the speech we need to hear as Africans. This is the kind of leaders that Africans need to have in our generation so that we can get rid of all the system that's been disturbing us to not even develop. But guys, the man, he finishes his speech by saying these words, which I'm inviting you to pay more attention to what he said.
With a population of more than 1 billion Africans, around 70% of whom are young people who are completely free, open-minded, open to the world, and determined to take their destiny into their own hands. The time has come to realize that the structures, the rules from the post-war era established in the absence of our states, which did not yet exist at the time, are obsolete. This is the end of an unbalanced and unjust era where we had no say in the matter. It is time to take our rights into account and to let us take our proper place, but also, and above all, it is time to stop lecturing us and to stop treating us with condescension like children. Rest assured that we're old enough to know what is good for us. We are mature enough to define our priorities, to design our own models which are in line with our identity, the daily reality of our countries and our populations, in line with what we are, quite simply. We would be very grateful to you if you trust us and let us run our business as you have allowed in certain regions of the world, as you have allowed in Asia, in the Near and the Middle East, to cite only a few. This infantilization that we have experienced has had the worst effect on African youth who are now emancipated. In this context, we are all challenged and called upon to carry out a better analysis of the situation with a view to initiating and pursuing new policies for the benefit of all. The international community must look to Africa with new eyes. It must now engage in genuine cooperation with Africa in a spirit of win-win partnership. I thank you for your attention.
This is the kind of the speech that each and every Africans want to hear. This is the kind of the message we need to pass out there to the world. And we need this kind of young Africans who are willing to take this kind of risk by telling the world the truth, nothing but the truth. Africa is old enough. Africa is old enough to take good care of themselves. Yes, Africans can do whatsoever the world thinks that Africa can do. The man said it. He told the West to let African free, to set African free. In other words, to give that freedom that Africans deserve to have, the freedom that we're supposed to be having a long time ago. He asked the West to stay out of Africans' affair. He asked the West to trust African. just as much they are doing it with the Middle East. This nonsense that has been going on in Africa, whereby every time they have to come in Africa and tell us what to do with our own minerals, they get to tell us how we should produce it, which country have to produce it, because you're not gonna tell me that all these African minerals we see around Africa, or whether it is gold from DRC or Mali, whether it is diamond from Kimberley, or whether it is petrol from Angola or Nigeria, all these minerals that we have, you're not gonna tell me that we do produce it in Africa. Instead, it is these same West countries who come and tell you that, no, look, when your job is just to make sure that you give us your minerals, us will tell you where it will be produced. So they take it in Africa, they go with it in their own countries, they fabricate whatever they want to fabricate it with, they make use of it, and then they come to sell it in Africa. An iPhone, which is made with the African minerals, they are selling it at a very high price to Africans. But when all those minerals left Africa, they left at a very cheap price. In our previous video, we told you how much France is buying the uranium of Niger at 8 euros and sell it at 200 euros. So they are making more than 95% profit out of what people of Niger are supposed to be benefiting from. And that's not only Niger. We're talking about Niger. What about DRC? All the coltons that comes from DRC. They are giving you the price on how you should sell your own merchandise and to where you have to go and sell it to. So President Mamady here was very clear, just to say that no, you guys, you have to leave us to decide on our own. You can trust us. And by the way, we don't care whether they trust us or not. The African that I'm seeing today, this new generation, they are here to make things happen. They don't care. They don't care. Africans, they are more determined more than ever. So they are here to make things happen. Whether the West approve it or not, whether the West trust them or not, they are here to make things will happen because they want the Africa to go forward and not to stuck anymore. So he was very clear in his message. He did not beat around the bush. He told them the truth right in front of their eyes. You will say that no, he's just a soldier. He don't know nothing. He does not have a diplomat's language that other politicians get to speak time to time. Nope. This man just tell the truth that the world need to hear. This man is just complementing what many other Pan-Africans they've been saying. These are the things that Julius Malema have spoke about. Professor Lumumba has spoke about. Many Pan-African, Ibrahim Toure from Burkina Faso spoke about. This one from Mali spoke about. President Ramaphosa spoke about. Tshisekedi spoke about. So what about President Nana? That's another person I forgot to mention. President Nana from Ghana. He was even very harsh in his words when it comes to these things. He asked for the West to stay out of Africans' affairs. He did not beat around the bush. He was very honest. President Nana from Ghana.
If the international community was to support, not undermine, the efforts of our regional and continental organizations to deal with them. Africans fought and died in the Second World War in defense of Europe and her allies, who reset the world towards the path of peace and prosperity that their nations and citizens have enjoyed for decades now. It is surely time for the world to reciprocate in our time of need. The world should not pretend that the present-day economic and social conditions of Africa have nothing to do with the historical injustices that have fashioned the structures of the world. It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the centuries of colonial exploitation. Maybe we should also admit that it cannot be easy to build confident and prosperous societies from nations that for centuries have their natural resources looted and their peoples traded as commodities. For centuries, the world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of the slave trade. But gradually, this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted, the current generations are not the ones that engaged in the slave trade, but that grand inhuman enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated, that millions of productive Africans were snatched from the embrace of our continent and put to work in the Americas and the Caribbean without compensation for their labor. If there are any hesitations in some minds about the paying of reparations, it is worth considering the fact that when slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of the slaves because the human beings were labeled as property, deemed to be commodities. Surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore.
Guys, now, if you summarize all this speech from different presidents or leaders of Africa, you will understand that they both heard our crying, they both heard our message, they both heard what African people are saying about the West and the open IMA system. And then they are all speaking the same language without having fear. They are now speaking out. They are now talking without being afraid of anything. They kind of like, whatever's gonna come, let it be. We are ready, because as long I have the support of my people, and we need each and every African leaders who have not have the courage to have this kind of the speech in this kind of platforms to come forward, because Africans were here and will support them. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was very important that we get to talk about this speech that these young men have come again forward to speak in behalf of Africans, because that's what we really need right now. If you do find anything beneficial in this video, please don't forget to give us your thumbs up. We really do appreciate you, because it is very important that this message get to reach to many people over around the world, so that they can get to understand that Africa, it is now ready to take his future and do what is right for themselves. But if you want to catch up our next video next time, and this is your first time that you are watching our videos, just make sure that you hit that subscribe button, so that whenever we are live or upload a new videos, you don't get to miss it. I'll see you again very soon in our next video. But for now, continue to be yourself, be good, be kind, have respect for everyone in order for you to be respected. May God bless you all.